year is 1917. The war to end all wars has been raging across Europe for 3 years, with the loss of millions of lives, towns and villages obliterated, and the world changed forever. But the war continues with its insatiable appetite for more and more war material and fighting men. This film, made from the perspective of a group of young and older people from Coventry, exploring their cultural heritage in the year 1917.
I think I got quite a preconceived idea of what the First World War was all about without knowing a lot of the background information to it.
Sacrificial motherhood and National Baby Day, which I find quite interesting because it juxtaposes with some of the things about munitions working, that contrasting roles for women.
Today I learned about the Memorial Park and about Arthur Hutt, who was the first one to get a Victoria Cross medal in Coventry.
Researching into the war of contingent with the soldiers from abroad, the Empire.
Well, with me, the First World War, it's like everything else. I'm interested in the people that were left behind, not the ones that went to the front, the ones that were left here in Coventry, the home front.
There's so many different things that I've encountered, it's hard to remember them all, but I think mainly how many countries were actually involved in the First World War.
Well, there's 5 sons that her mother had, and they got killed in the army and stuff.
Really learned to think about how much there is that I don't know.
By the start of the First World War, Coventry as a city was transformed into an arsenal of war as the social and economic fabric of the city had geared up for total war and became an important national centre for war production and contributed greatly to the British and Allied armaments and munitions production.
The walk in the factory is long and hard, but because we walk shift we can stay up till midnight. Life with the other girls is so interesting. I am learning all sorts of things that our parents would not consider suitable for young ladies. Some of the girls are a bit uncouth, but when you get to know them, they can be really kind and they miss their families just as much as I miss you all at home.
I'm drowning, gasping, can't breathe, can't see. A voice close but indistinct. Then as the fog lifts, I focus on his face and the words he is saying hit home. I'm sorry. He was a credit to you. You should be proud. The fog descends again. He's gone. The laughter of the factory haunts me. Hope for the future crushed in the cruel, hard reality of war. The dreams of after the war, all gone. The doors we imagined opening for us slammed shut. My boy, killed by a shell I filled, gone. The graphic open on the table mocks me. National Baby Week, save the babies. Too late for mine.
Dear Mum, I've got some leave. Dead excited. Yes, I'm coming back home. I just can't wait to see you all soon, especially my nan. To play cards and dominoes with old man Uncle Alan. And go to church with my dad, Simeon. Then eat dumplings, ackee and saltfish with plenty of callaloo. Simply the best fit for a king. I've got a cake from one of my comrades for you, Mum. But it's not like a fruit cake which you've soaked in rum. I'm looking forward to tasting some real good traditional West Indian food. Oh, hallelujah, my son is coming home. So let's throw a surprise party for him. But only a few days later, a little girl said, "Good morning, Mrs. B, Auntie B. Son said to tell you, there's a letter at Nigel Post Office for thee, possibly from your son, serving in the mother country. It looks like a telegram penned by the King of England himself. all the way from Great Britain. But just for me, so with joyful expectation, my son is coming home. His mother screamed in such pain and anguish after reading the letter, which stated her son Lloyd is presumed dead, missing in action. Last seen at the 3rd Battle of Ypres, mending fences in a small village called Passchendaele.
Passchendaele. The name, along with the psalm, has come to symbolise the Great War for many. Before the launch of the Great Offensive, over 2 weeks, 4.5 million shells were fired from 3,000 guns, many of them made in Coventry. The Allied assault was launched in the early hours of 31st of July 1917. Because of the torrential rain, the British and Canadian troops found themselves fighting not only the Germans, but a quagmire of stinking mud that swallowed up men, horses and tanks. After 3 months, 1 week and 3 days of brutal trench warfare, the Allies finally recaptured the village of Passchendaele. But by then, around 360,000 British and Allied troops had been casualties, along with 260,000 German soldiers, in the most horrific trench warfare of the conflict.
And here we are currently in the Royal Warwick Museum in Warwick. Fascinating museum, and we've learned such a lot about the local history, where to find the information, why it was all recorded, what happened to certain people. The medal collection is absolutely amazing, listing all the exploits of the people. And it's just a very, very good museum, giving us a lot of information that we didn't already know, explained in very easy terms.
The War Memorial Park, formerly known as Stychel Common, was bought by the Gregory Hood family and opened in 1921 as a tribute to those Coventrians who gave their life in 1914 and 1918 fighting in the First World War. Of the 2,587 soldiers who died, only 248 have trees to commemorate their lives. Families were asked to pay the cost of 25 shillings per tree.
I've seen that there's a little dedicated stone thingies that have the names of the soldiers, I presume, that fought in the war. And yeah, it's just every tree's got that little stone, so I presume it's dedicated to each soldier. You know, people care and they want to remember and how grateful they are that these people went out and fought for the country. It is amazing and it is important because it makes others recognise the work that they did.
Built with blood money, blackmailed on grief, having sacrificed their sons, a monument built by public subscription on a city grown fat on war bonds and military ordnance orders. Each named tree nurtured forever, if a family afforded so many shillings of silver. He died anonymously. There was no name on the shell that killed him, alongside so many others. Unknown in the mist, mingling in unity with his pals.
For the most conspicuous bravery and initiative, on the 4th of October, southeast of Polkapelle, during the attack on Terrier Farm, this man took command of and led forward No. 2 platoon when all officers and NCOs had become casualties. He was held up by a strong enemy post on his right, and immediately he himself ran forward in front of the platoon and shot the German officer and 3 men in the post, causing between 40 and 50 to surrender. Later, realising that he's pushed too far beyond his objective, he personally covered the withdrawal by sniping the enemy, killing some and then carried back a badly wounded man and put him under shelter.
On the 28th of June, 1914, a shot rang out that echoed round the world. 3.5 years have passed, millions have died, cut down by machine gun fire, blown apart by shell fire, or drowned in a sea of mud. The war on the Western Front had developed into a stalemate situation that was now costing too many lives on both sides. The German forces pulled back during March and April to create a new and totally impregnable line of defence, the Hindenburg Line. By May 1917, they started moving troops to other areas of the front, safe in the knowledge that no Allied troops could cross the Hindenburg Line, with its impregnable barbed wire defence up to 100 yards deep in places and strong defensive pillboxes. But behind the sea of barbed wire lay a prize the Allies coveted, the rail link, which supplied the German front line and the town of Cambrai. The land near the town of Cambrai was thought suitable for tanks, as it hadn't seen any real action.
Tank? Walter sent me a drawing from the hospital. Got it here. The cars were in fact tanks. That's what they call them. Guns, shells, huge metal ants crawling across the land. Hardly any room inside to swing a cat. Walter was one of the first men ever to drive the tanks into battle.
The assault on the Hindenburg Line would be a bold one. At 6:20, Tuesday the 20th November, 476 tanks, supported by 6 infantry and 3 cavalry division, moved forward across a 6-mile front.
We felt them before we saw them. A great tremor under our feet, a rattle of chains, a deadly beat. Lumbering, lurching, crawling through the acrid smoke of the bleak November skies. Blind men sway, stopping at nothing, crushing all before. Deep caterpillar tracks ploughing through soft butter trenches, barbed wire barricades chewed and spat out, pressed into the corpse-laden heavy mud below. Feeble defences against a deadly demon, up and over, relentlessly unfaltering, up and over, as far as the eye could see. A mighty swarm that would end this war of wars. Telegram praise for each other, to the sound of clinking glasses, as we dug in for another night. Praying for sleep and to see the dawn, the blighty bells rang forth, public house chatter and skip in the step, as newspapers press and churn out hope, and the fleeting, bitter taste of triumph.
For a city to have a memorial park or a place of remembrance, I think it brings people to the city. I think it's important that the youth of the city are aware of what the history was.
As part of the project that we're doing on the First World War, I've been concentrating a little bit on war artists. And one of the first men war artists to be commissioned was Sir William Orpen. And we've come here to the Herbert Art Gallery to see one of his paintings here, which is entitled German Prisoners in France, 1917. As you can probably see, they look a little bit dejected. They've been captured. And I can imagine they've probably got a sense of relief, because for them, their war is over. There were quite a few men war artists who were commissioned. I find it hard to imagine why they would want to basically rush out to a war zone to do paintings. I mean, they were doing it of their own volition. And basically, it was for propaganda purposes. It was a way of memorialising the war, but also as propaganda. As you can see, this shows beaten prisoners, the enemy, if you like, whereas some of the ones portraying the British side of it were a bit more upbeat and more highly spirited than this. I can't imagine why some of the artists would want to go out and do these paintings, because basically going out into a war zone of your own free will and actually going into the action to record it must have been quite a brave thing to do. But it does leave us a good record of what happened during the First World War.
Shot for cowardice, yes, I did know that, and I did think it was unfair at the time, and obviously I think they've had a retrospective pardon.
This was during the time people were drafted into military service. Pardoning someone doesn't untake their life away.
Here we are at the National Arboretum in Staffordshire. I'm leaning on a statue of Private Herbert Burton, who was shot at dawn in Ypres in 1915 at the young age of 17. Behind me, as you can see, are 309 posts which represent each of the men that were shot at dawn, some for desertion and some for other misdemeanours. When I first started this project, I knew very little about the First World War, apart from what I'd learned at school, that it probably kicked off with Archduke Franz Ferdinand being shot. I knew a little bit about the trenches, but very little else. Since being on the course, it's really opened my eyes to what the lads went through in the war.
Lest we forget, how do we remember? In the aftermath of World War I, there was a call to remember the lives that were sacrificed by ordinary men. There are 54,000 memorials to lives lost in World War I in the UK. Remembrance is both a personal and a shared act, which draws communities and nations together and speaks of a shared heritage. The National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire has pulled this personal and corporate remembrance together in a unique and powerful way. The Arboretum, like the Cenotaph in London, has become a site of national remembrance and of commemoration, honouring those in distant and in more recent conflicts, honouring their sacrifice for others.
Inside the memorial is a room called the Chamber of Silence.
I remember many years ago you could go inside that tall memorial and look at them. I think they had to stop that because of damage, but what impressed me when I went was how thick the book of the First World War was compared with the Second World War casualties.
We're here in the Council House in Coventry, and this is the Book of the Fallen. This book records the names of each man who lost his life in World War I, men from Coventry who gave their life as a sacrifice for others. These books were originally stored in the Memorial Park in Coventry, inside the memorial at the centre of that park.
There used to be a book of remembrance, two books of remembrance held in that building, and because of vandalism and so forth, it's not normally open now. It used to be open every day, but those books are held now just inside the council house. And I instituted that in 1995 when I was Lord Mayor.
These books mark the names of each man who lost their life in World War I, men from Coventry who gave their lives as a sacrifice.
Our city is far from here, and our mothers' hearts beat a silent tear. Lovers' thoughts we will hold dear. They'll never know our darkest fears. We're a long way from home, old pal.
Our boots are heavy and caked in mud. The trenches deep as rain falls flood. We'll sleep huddled tight as far-off missiles thud. In trenches soaked in our comrades' blood. We're a long way from home, old pal.
The dawn will bring another day, a bullet's death and barricades, forgotten words, or forgotten prayers, orders given, but no one cares. We're a long way from home, old pal.
They always said we were thick as thieves, fell out of the same pod of peas. Grew up together, side by side, the king's shilling, the country's pride. We're a long way from home, old pal.
And as the black cannon fire skies move in the breeze, a sniper's shot paints a deathly frieze. You'll never see the flags and the triumph and the cheers. I'll hold your hand and wipe away your tears. Good night, old pal. We'll let you rest in peace. A long, long way from home.
All's quiet in the streets of the city that built bullets, as the foreign absence looms heavy like smog, while in the battlefield, built from bullets and bombs, above the mud and blood, smoke rises and blots out the sun. In the factories of the city, the point of each round tips a scale in the wages of war. The sweat, heart and hope of the workers labour into each carefully manufactured round. In the Passchendaele trenches, amid the noise and struggle, the field becomes a proving ground for the everyday heroics that make the story's home hold close.